Hello, and welcome to another episode of Undiscovered Beasts and Strange Phenomena. Please join our experienced and knowledgeable panel of hosts as we explore the great mysteries of our time: Bigfoot, UFOs, ghosts, and unexplained phenomena.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Glances Through the Veil. I'm your host, Vanessa Hogle, and with me is Mike Richburg, and he has decided to put me on the spot with some questions about the Ouija board. Mike, are you there?
Yes, Vanessa. Thank you for having me on.
Well, thank you for being on. I'm actually really excited about this because I think that this is a good opportunity to kind of clear up some misconceptions and discuss something that seems to be on the tip of everybody's tongue, but there are so many varying opinions on proper protocol. Is it bad? Is it good? Should you do it? It's one of those topics that has a lot of controversy to it. And we all know I'm no stranger to controversy. I will preface by saying that what I'm going to say in regards to your questions is my own personal opinion and experiences. And they can vary for each and every individual out there, but at least you'll know my take on it. Fair enough?
Certainly. Fair enough. Yes.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Okay.
All right. Well, I appreciate that, and I agree. Well, yeah, certainly. It is a somewhat controversial topic in some ways, and I've always been fairly curious about. Well, to start with, Vanessa, I mean, just what is Ouija, and am I saying it correctly? Is that the correct pronunciation?
Ouija. It's Ouija. It's Ouija board. People call them talking boards. People call them spirit boards. Essentially, it is just a divination tool, just like tarot, just like a pendulum that you might use, a mirror that you might scry with, a crystal ball that you might scry with. However, this is where it gets hinky, okay? This is where it gets hinky is they haven't really went off the deep end with those other forms of divination in regards to that, as they have with the Ouija boards. As far as Hollywood goes, movies, TV shows, this, that, and the other.
Absolutely.
So Ouija got a smidge of a bad rap to begin with, but the big but there, it's not necessarily unwarranted either.
Well, help me understand this now. Now, Ouija, and a lot of people will say this in a devil's advocate kind of way. Now, Ouija is just something that Hasbro made up, right? I mean, it's just some hocus pocus Hasbro board game. Is that what we're dealing with here?
Ish. Okay, if I can be very vague. People have been using things like Ouija for years and years and years and years and years, even before Hasbro came out with something. So, they call them spirit boards or talking boards. And so, different things like that were being used. I believe it was Hasbro that cornered the market on it and put them out there as toys for kids. And they actually, this is no joke, they actually had blue ones and pink ones, blue ones for the boys, pink ones for the girls. Yeah. They sure did. And of course, everybody is in an uproar because of the reputation behind Ouija boards and the fact that, a toy manufacturer is putting them out for children, and, children don't know what they're doing. They're going to summon a demon. Well,
that's right.
Mike, let's face it, adults don't know what they're doing. They summon all kinds of crap using the Ouija board. Would you like me to explain what I mean by that?
Well, that brings up a couple questions. Yeah.
Yes.
Please.
Okay. The difference, the fundamental difference between a Ouija board and a pendulum or tarot cards or other types of divination, honestly, is intent. I'm going to be very honest with you. When I sit down and I do a tarot card reading, I am opening myself up to the person that I'm reading for, their energy, and their ancestral energy or any guides that want to come through and speak to or for them. The same way with a pendulum. You're asking the guides for advice. Same thing with scrying, same thing with crystal ball. You know, all of that has a different intent. The Ouija, when people take those and they use those at supposed haunted locations, or you see them used in a show or in a movie or whatever, their intent seems to be always of a mischievous intent. They're not asking for guidance. They're not asking to speak to somebody pleasant. They're opening it up to anything.
Right.
And it's that devil may care attitude. I don't care what comes through. I just want proof of something coming through. When that isn't.
Yeah, that's pretty reckless, you know.
Oh,
way
yes, it
to
is.
do something. Yeah.
Well, and how I explain it to people is, you can leave your front door open because you got a friend coming over, but if you don't lock it after the friend comes over, anybody can walk through after that.
Yeah. If you open the door, anything can come through it.
Absolutely.
Right? If you open the front door of your house, there might be a possum come through there, a bird fly through the door.
Exactly.
You just don't ever know what you're letting in. That's right.
You really don't. You really don't.
To help me understand now, because I'm very much so a novice on this whole thing, I've seen the Ouija board, you know, in all its glory as the Hasbro product. So basically, it's packaged as a talking board with a little planchette, if you will, in the box that you slide. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit because that's a very curious thing. And apparently, 2 people are required to operate the Ouija. Is that correct or incorrect or something?
It should be. It should be at least 2. And let me go ahead and preface by saying the person's operating it, don't slide it. The energy is what should slide it. The reason you start with 2
that was
people,
my question. Right.
Yes. The reason you start with 2 people is like a checks and balance system. One person is going to know based on the pull of the planchette as to whether or not it's being pushed instead of...
You can tell if the other person's manipulating the planchette.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
I see.
Yes.
That's very interesting.
One of those things where, you're meant, each person is meant to keep the other person in check. Like if I have to do a pendulum session, and I'm having to tape it because to be on camera so people can see it, I make sure that my entire arm is visible in the camera angle so that whomever is watching can see that I'm not manipulating the pendulum. Okay?
Right.
Exactly.
That's very fascinating.
And so, you really have to be careful with that because integrity and reputation is everything in this field. And the way I look at it, if you fake once, I question every single thing you do before and after. Yeah. Period.
It's like that in my cryptozoology field, as well.
And it should
if you put something fake out there, and chances of somebody believing the next one's not too good.
Exactly right. I tell people, question every word that comes out of my mouth. Double check me, research me, do what you got to do. Because I have absolutely
always ask those hard questions. Yeah, that's what it's all about, learning. And I appreciate you schooling me up a little bit here. I think, as I said, I've seen it before, and I've seen it kind of in operation with just like, my cousins or some friends doing it or something like that. And it's one of those things that struck me, Vanessa, is like, I didn't know how to take it, and I haven't figured either it's real or it's not. If it's not real, it's kind of like a gun. Well, it's either a toy gun or it's a real gun. If it's a toy gun, it don't matter. If it's a real gun, we better not be playing with it. So that's the way I always look at it.
Honey, it's real.
Right, so maybe we shouldn't be giving these things to youngins and saying, "Hey, go summon some demons up, y'all," or whatever. That sounds a little reckless.
It is, and I'm going to tell you why. It's very biological. It is very biological as to why it's not a good idea. And I'm speaking from personal experience here, especially in young girls. The onset of what we would consider, and I hate to use this term, but I'm going to do it anyway, the onset of our mystical powers, so to speak, happens at the end of prepubescence, right into puberty. That is the age range that they are focusing on for kids to use.
Oh, yeah, I never thought of that. But you're exactly correct.
Exactly right. I'm telling you right now, whether it's, the parents with the Conjuring House, whether it's other cases where there are multiple teenage girls in the house, you almost can't help but have a plethora of activity, even if it's minor to start out with. When they hit those age ranges, it's something hormonal, it's something ancestral, and it just seems to ignite it. And you don't know that you're doing it, therefore you don't know how to control it. And so putting it very much is like putting a gun in the hand of a 12-year-old boy that's only ever played Call of Duty and has no concept of a real gun.
It's reckless.
In
that same sense. So, it's something that you should really consider. I mean, as a parent, maybe you want to think that through. It's not just like buying a game of Risk or Sorry or what have you, average board game or something. There might be a lot more to it than that.
Exactly right. And the thing is, when we have shows out there, and I want to say it was a Destination America or something like that. It was one of those shows. And they were actually at the house where the original case that inspired the movie The Exorcist was at. I was watching this show live. They were doing it live. And they were, how they'll do those and they'll take questions on TV and everything else. They pulled out a Ouija board in this house.
Oh.
They did not, they did not open it properly. They did not close it properly. And what I'm talking about is the actual session. There is a process. There is very much a process when you're opening up to something that you are not certain what it is. You state your intent at the beginning and what it is that you're looking for, and then you do your session, and then you close the session, basically saying all communication is now off. This session is closed. That is very, very, very important. And there are going to be people who scoff at that, who say that, oh, well, if it's a demon or blah, 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 that they're not going to care that you opened and closed properly. There are rules, and they do matter. And they matter whether you're living or dead. There are certain natural laws that have to be abided by, regardless of whether you are of a lighter persuasion or a darker persuasion. And, I mean, I'm speaking from 48 years' experience here.
Right. I know you are very experienced.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, it's just something that it's you learn through trial and error. Trust me. I've done the Ouija. I've done all the scary stuff. I've seen the scary things. And you learn through trial and error what is acceptable and what isn't. And that was the one thing, and I was actually yelling at them. I was typing in my message, and it was playing on the screen. I'm like, what are you doing? You're just walking away from the board. You're not closing the session. And that is something that drives me insane, is because people that are fascinated by the paranormal but aren't well-versed in it look at that as what is acceptable to do. And that's scary. Because that's why people like me got to be called out.
Right. So, basically what you're saying, if I follow you correctly, is it's kind of like opening and shutting the door. When you're done with the door, you close it, right?
Exactly. You could look at, okay, so this is a great way to put it. You just actually helped me figure out how to verbalize this. Imagine the Ouija as a portable portal. That's what it is. It's a portable portal. It is
talking
temporary.
Board, it represents a portal to the spirit world, if you will, like a divination tool, as you touched on earlier. And of course, I've always wondered how the church might, and I'm not an overly religious person, but I was curious, about how the church might view the use of such things. I'm sure that's powerful mojo, if you will, in the church, in certain religious circles. So they might
well, I can tell you from
caution.
personal experience, they're not a fan.
Yeah, I was trying to put it mildly, to urge caution when dabbling with things like that. I could see why maybe. It's dangerous potentially in that sense.
It absolutely can be dangerous.
Yeah, and it makes all the sense in the world, too. Like you say, you open the door when you're using it, and when you're done, make sure you close it and that latch clips, I mean, so you can turn your back on and go about your business, right? You don't want to leave that portal that you described open, in that sense.
Exactly.
I mean, that seems very, there again, I hate to use the word reckless so many times, but that just seems like something that's not very well thought out.
Exactly. It isn't. It's irresponsible. And that's the other thing is those of us that are in the field that are more well known, I think we forget at times that we have a responsibility. That we have a responsibility to where if we're going to do something, we better do it right, and we better do it with, as much integrity as we possibly can, because those that are just coming up in the field or those that are new to it are looking to us for guidance. And it seems that certain things like the Ouija board are used gratuitously, being used in a responsible manner. They're used for impact, because people want to be known as the rebels, or, you prove to me that this is bad. That is oh my stars, I have to say it, Mike, just because we're on here, that is the other thing that just irritates the absolute dickens out of me is, when people are doing something like that or using a tool like that, and you not only using it improperly, but using it in such a fashion as to ignite violence. And I've seen it. I have seen people with my own two eyes use those boards and say, well, come at me with all you've got. Really?
Wow.
Really? I actually had to clear a house. I had to clear a house from people that were doing that. And it took me a cool minute. It took me a couple of tries, multiple visits to get that house cleared. And that was out of danger to me. And I told them, I said, this is the one thing. I said, I don't care what else you do, but this is the one thing. Do not use this board again because you're not doing it properly. And even if I tell you, I already know you're not going to do it the way that I tell you to do it. Within 3 weeks, like no joke, within 3 weeks, they were calling me again. They're like, well, we just wanted to pull it out and see.
Right.
And I said, you know what, you're on your own.
Well, that brings a good question. I mean, who really should be using a Ouija and who shouldn't? I mean,
I won't tell anyone they can't do it if they're going to do it properly. And here's the other thing. I mean, forget my personal opinion of it. Let's just throw that out the window, okay? Let's look at the one thing that they should be concerned with is what is going to happen or what has a possibility of happening to their family or their loved ones who live in the same home if they choose to act recklessly. That's the issue.
That's an excellent point.
Yeah, not what everybody else thinks, but that's the issue. I have seen this go south in a hurry, simply because they were not using their head. Now, if they're willing to deal with the karma that comes from it or deal with the consequences, so be it. But are they willing to put their family at risk? You know, and there will be those who say, well, Vanessa, you do tarot, you do scrying, you do pendulum sessions. Aren't you doing the same thing? Nope. As stated earlier in the show, it is different. Yes, they're all divination tools, but the Ouija, 99.5% of the time when people are going into that, their intent is completely different. It's to antagonize and instigate, not to communicate. I can't say it any better than that.
Right.
Yeah.
That's powerful stuff to be playing games with.
Yes. Yes, it is. You know, and I mean, if anyone has ever seen the little docuseries that Gwen and I did in Ireland and seen what I went through at the very end of the episode about Moore Hall, I mean, I know how dangerous it is to open yourself up too much. Nobody knows that better than me. You know, we had photographic evidence of everything that was happening. They were completely, you couldn't see it with your own two eyes. But when I was taking pictures, they were blocking out the entire frame of my camera. Blocking it out. You watched it happen in stages. And I finally just told Gwen and Mick that was there with me, I'm like, I have to go. I said, it's just too many of them. And as I'm walking away, I'm closing myself up, and I'm stating it vocally and out loud. I don't mean any disrespect, but I cannot do this anymore. I cannot talk to you anymore. I was closing everything down. And I didn't have a pendulum, a Ouija board, or a tarot deck in my hand whatsoever. But if I hadn't have, they would have come right along with me. And it was to the point I was going to pull my hair out. It was that bad. Because there were hundreds of them. So,
have you ever used a Ouija board during an investigation?
Oh, no, well, no. I have remote viewed for a team using one during an investigation. So they had me to open and close the session. So because I was able to do that with them through WhatsApp because they were in England and I am here obviously in Oklahoma, and I was actually able to go through WhatsApp and vocalize the opening and the closing of the session. And then Dave Newton, who is a part of Knox Paranormal, he actually repeated what I was saying as far as opening and closing the session. So, yeah, I'm weird about it. I really am. It's not that I'm against them. I'm not. I'm against them being used improperly. And there's a huge difference. And, unfortunately, most people use them improperly.
Improperly.
Yes.
And I guess it depends on the individual and their knowledge base and experience and things like that. Much like driving a car, maybe, you know, some teenagers take to it, say, earlier than others or whatever, for whatever reasons and whatnot. Maybe some people just would take to understanding how you should have a respectful, methodical type of usage of the Ouija instead of just random,
instead of hot
rodding. Make it spell devil or whatever, something, You just know to
You know what? That is one of the most common questions.
I'm just trying to think back. Go ahead.
That's one of the most common questions. That is one of the most common questions. Yeah. And I've seen it on show after show after show.
Yeah.
True story.
Really?
Yeah. But I mean, over the years. I actually quit watching the majority of those shows years ago because I know what they're doing is improper in many ways. So, but yeah, in movies and stuff like that, for years, that's how they've been used, And it always seems to be something. It's as if their intent is wanting something nefarious to come through.
Yeah.
Well, that's not my intent when I do tarot or do a pendulum, at all. So, are they the same?
Like
yes. Are they
dangerous.
different? Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And that's just irresponsible, on some level.
It really, really, really is. It's the people that do that are the same ones that go into a location and say, "Prove to me you're here. Scratch me, push me."
Yeah.
And then get mad when it happens. I'm serious. They get mad when it happens. I'm like, well, you asked for it. What are you doing? What are you doing? You asked for it. That's one of the reasons why, I don't understand with a lot of this going on and the teams that use these and stuff like that. When they get what they ask for, they run screaming like little bitches. I don't understand it.
Well, my grandmother always used to say, be very careful what you ask for because you might just get it.
Exactly.
So, one must be particular when
exactly
manifesting wishes. It pays to be specific and prepared for your wish to come true. I recently found out something about that myself. But now, as far as we're talking about out there, so as far as as tools go to reach the other side, you touched on this earlier at the beginning about you got your pendulums and your crystal balls and what have you and things like that. Where does the talking board fall in there? Is it just as a legitimate tool as the rest of them, so to speak?
If used properly, yes. If used properly, yes. My only thing is I believe in all this stuff. Yes, I'm a psychic. Yes, I talk to dead people. Yes, I've been this way my whole life. But I'm also a skeptic. Go figure. So that's one of the things where unless I'm the one physically doing it, I always question whether or not they're moving the planchette on their own. I can't help it. Just because I've seen it too much. So
it seems it would be something,
isn't my choice.
Easy to fake if you didn't have that checks and balances thing with that other person, like you were saying, and because
exactly, it's very easy.
It's just
to fake.
Some people are just don't have good intentions, unfortunately.
You're absolutely correct.
Now, of course, I was just going to say, go ahead and finish your thought. I'm sorry.
I can't remember what it was. You go ahead, hon.
I was going to say, we're talking about the movement of the planchette itself. Now, there's been some studies conducted, and the quote-unquote scientific community would have you believe it's, ideomotor response, which is like involuntary movement, or whatever. So, is it, I think I know your answer, but do you think it's just, random involuntary movement, whoever's got their hands on the planchette, or is it actually working, so to speak?
I think it's actually, it can be both, but here's the thing. For me, the times that I've used it, when I know it was moving on its own, there is a very real different feeling. And it's palpable to whomever is there. The energy around the board actually changes. It's almost like static electricity. So that's the one thing. If somebody is pushing the planchette, it almost jerky, you know what I mean? Because it'll drag on the board. If it's actually being moved by a spirit, it's quite smooth. It's almost as if it levitates and moves to where it needs to go. But I don't mean like a high levitation, like it's barely above the board. And so it is a very, very different feeling. A good indicator.
More of a gliding motion than a dragging across.
A good indicator of whether or not it is a spirit doing it or not is if somebody is using it, they need to have their sleeves pushed up because the hair will stand up on their arms.
Oh, like
it's a very good indicator.
Energy thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if
that
that's
is a very
going
good
on
indicator.
and you're operating it, and you know something on the other side's probably operating, and you got that feeling, that static energy vibe, then you know it's real in your gut. But there's times when that's not happening also. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And the thing is, I mean, you're going to have people that are going to say, well, you know, a negative entity or a negative spirit can always lie, you know, and so it doesn't matter what you're using, whether it's the pendulum or the tarot or the Ouija, they can always lie. And you know what? They're right. They're right. A spirit can always lie. To some people, not to everybody. You know, we have, if we pay attention to them, with living and dead, we have inner alert systems. You know, with the living, we call it our gut. You know, for me, with deceased or with living, honestly, if it's negative, the air has a very distinct taste to it. I've talked about this on many shows. It's like I'm sucking on a piece of charcoal. You know, a piece of burnt charcoal. So can a negative spirit lie and make you think that it's something benign so that you'll continue to talk to it through the Ouija or some other source of divination? Absolutely. Does it generally last very long? No, because if you're listening to yourself and you're trusting your gut, you catch on to that pretty quick and you can close it down. You know, like I said, there are rules. People want to act like if it's a spirit, if it's dead, there are no rules. Rules don't apply, and that is absolutely incorrect, at least in my personal experience. You know, I've scared down something that would scare the pants off of you, Mike. Straight up, in Virginia, I've scared something that would scare the pants off of you. And it didn't come after me. We came to an accord. So there's something to be said for standing your ground. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And on both sides of the veil, that holds true. And
absolutely.
You know, if you're going to dabble in such a thing, it seems to me like it would be a common sense thing to want to be very respectful, if nothing else. So you'd want to kind of know what you was doing a little bit, kind of, you know, learn from somebody who knew more about it than you, or type of thing, or something like that before you just went out with reckless abandon and started just leaving the door open and inviting things in, like you say. And
unfortunately, and I'm going to receive some backlash for this, but you know what? Wouldn't be my first rodeo. If there is one thing I've learned in this field, is that in regards to this particular subject, common sense is not very common. Because it is all about, I
can't argue that. I mean, I've seen that even with my own eyes.
Oh, yes, the absolute truth. And the thing is because it's been made into a circus of sorts by certain people, where it's all about the scariest evidence. It's all about, you know, scaring people or frightening people or something like that. Exactly. And that's not what it should be about. If you're truly in this field to get answers, that should be the last thing you want.
That's correct, Vanessa.
You know, I mean,
you're
in
if you're seeking answers, right? I mean, you want the truth. The last thing you want to do is put BS out there.
Exactly, because it's not helping anybody. And tell me right now, if you are out searching for Bigfoot, I refuse to use the word hunting, but if you're out searching for Bigfoot and you actually come across him, are you going to run screaming in the other direction? Are you going to try to entice him to hurt you?
Right. No, I mean, it pays to be calm, cool, and collective.
Yes, it does. As I've talked about this before. I'm going to go ahead and tell you because I find it fascinating. Because I'm sure you've seen a lot of the shows and everything as well. But when Gwen and I were at Moore Hall in Ireland, we caught what is to date the best piece of indisputable paranormal evidence I've ever seen. I've ever seen. It's indisputable. There is absolutely no question that this was rigged. That this wasn't rigged at all. The guy that was with us, we had security with us because we were out in the middle of the night. And when I say the middle of the night, in July in Ireland, the sun don't go down until about 11:30. So this was like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, okay? And so we were out in the middle of the night, out in the middle of nowhere, at a very, very rough at Moore Hall. It is very frightening. I'm not going to lie to you. Mick is 6'4", about 260, and he was on a makeshift ladder with the ladder leaned against the first floor windowsill of Moore Hall. And if this gives you any idea, that's the first floor. He's 6'4". He had to be on a ladder to see into this window. Yes. It's a total stone building. The windowsill was approximately 12 inches deep and about 30 to 36 inches wide. And he turned off his cell phone because he was using a regular camera. Turned it off, sat it face down on the windowsill farthest away from him. He's taking pictures, and this thing that is there is just messing with his camera like crazy. We've got all of this on tape. The next thing you know, his cell phone turns on, the flashlight turns on, and it flies off the windowsill.
What?
Completely caught on camera, no interruption in the feed whatsoever. And instead of saying, oh, my gosh, whatever this is must want us to leave, we better go, I waddled my little chubby ass over there, picked up the phone and handed it to him, and he's like, here you go, dude. And but see, that's my point. If you're going to a place like this and asking to be able to document proof, why are you going to run? Why are you going to flip out? And that, like I said, best piece of evidence I've ever seen, completely indisputable. Nobody said boo because we didn't wig out. That's what people want. They don't want knowledge. They don't want to communicate. I'm not saying everybody, but a large chunk. They don't want to document. They want to be scared. And it's those people using the Ouija that scare me. Because those are the people that I'm going to have to go to their house and fix whatever the problem is. I don't have time for that. That makes sense?
It's the same people, right? I mean,
yeah. Those who only want to be scared, that this is no place for them. But yet that seems to be what the trend is now. Just scare me. Don't me.
All the drama and sensationalism sells. So that's what gets your ratings going.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it does. But you know what's funny is Gwen and I have received many, many, many accolades for what we did in Ireland. I keep burping. I'm so sorry. But we've received many accolades for that. And, I mean, somebody actually posted on Twitter that they had, when they first saw our episodes, because we're not like that. It's history over hype, documentation without provocation. And they said, we've never seen anything like this before. And they actually went back and watched every single one of our videos. Because they wanted something. Yeah, they wanted, and they put it out there publicly. I didn't know who they were. They put it out there publicly, and I'm like, thank you, And when we go to Scotland in April, hang on. We like to do things our way. I'll just put it that way. So, and you know what? We have different divination tools we'll be using over there for very specific reasons. But I can guarantee you, when you're watching our episodes, you'll see that it's done correctly. And the thing is, you're not born with this knowledge for the most part. This does take research and speaking with those in the know that are knowledgeable of it. I encourage people, ask questions. It doesn't have to be to me. Find somebody that has a good rep on it and ask them. Poke around, do your own research, Don't just go by what's being done on TV, because I can guarantee you, and I've been on set, it's being done completely improperly.
That's sad.
Yep. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's, like I said, and this is my favorite word in regards to this, it's gratuitous.
Yes. The first time I ever saw it, it's funny. Quick story. The first time I ever heard about a Ouija board, right, is I have an older cousin named Tammy. She wouldn't mind me saying her name. All right, so me and Tammy and my other cousins at my grandma's house. Well, Grandma was what you call a member of the Holy Pentecostal Church, what some people lovingly call, Holy Rollers or whatever. They're pretty hardcore about their religious beliefs, if you will.
Oh, yeah.
And Grandma took some things very seriously, like you didn't have playing cards around and things like that, And she walked in to the bedroom there, and my cousin done broke out the Ouija board.
Oh,
I've never seen a face like that, anybody's expression like that ever in my life. I thought it was going to kill my grandma outright.
Oh, my
I just thought she was going to drop dead when she seen that thing. You would not believe
you know why she didn't want
the
playing
drama
cards, too.
that took her. Well, any kind of cards wasn't no good.
Oh, yeah, because, regular playing cards are used for tarot as well. The same suit.
Yeah. It's just the same. Yeah, it's basically the same suits and everything. So.
Yep.
Like, so Grandma had us immediately repackage everything, and we had to put it in the top. She put it in the top of the closet upside down and cut the light off and shut the door on the closet and said, "That's going to stay there till y'all go, and then I'm going to get that back to your mom." And I think she had some words to my aunt about that thing. But I have never seen a woman get so bent out of shape by a Ouija board. But she sure enough did not like that thing.
Wow. I'm really not surprised. I'm really not surprised.
It was just something that I think she recognized it as a powerful tool that should be used by somebody that knows what they're doing, and that ain't nobody she knows. So there ain't nobody fit to be using something like that. So that's going to be put up. That's the last thing you need. Of course, the house is already like a super haunted location, so that's probably like the best or worst place to be using something like that. So.
I would actually say the worst. I really would. I mean,
yeah, we was about opening the damn portal to hell or something, and Grandma about had a heart attack over that thing.
Yeah, I mean, if the place is, let me just go ahead and say it. If the place is already that active, you don't need one. I mean, unless you're trying to bring forth something else, and if that's what you're trying to do, then just get to stepping. I mean, that's the biggest problem. If the place is already haunted, there really isn't any need to use that. If people want to communicate with spirits and they're already in a location that has been proven haunted, if they will just sit and listen, they'll speak to you. Take a notebook and a pencil and write down what they say. They'll give you names, dates, how they died, what they look like, everything. They'll do that. They will do that, and then you can verify it all later. Just because you're videotaping it on a board doesn't make it any more valuable. People forget the best paranormal tool we have, that we will ever have, is us.
It's our brain,
it's us.
Our sensors, our built-in sensors.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely right. So, I mean, That's my personal beliefs on it. That's how I feel about it. There's going to be plenty of people who disagree, it going both ways. That's why I did do the little disclaimer at the beginning. But this is how I feel on it, and I just hope that by people listening that maybe they will take a different approach, even if they're going to use a Ouija board. If they'll just take a different approach and maybe learn a little bit more about them and maybe talk to somebody who has a little bit more knowledge and make sure that they're not doing anything that could cause them harm or anyone close to them or anyone that, is in their household or whatnot. And the other thing, if they're taking it into somebody's home for an investigation, which I've seen happen, if they're doing that, they need to be cognizant of what they're doing and prepared for it, because they might be opening up something that they don't know how to close and leaving it for a family. And they just get to go home at night.
Right.
So it's a lot of responsibility. It's a lot of responsibility. So, and that really goes with anything. It's just, what do they say in that one movie? Use your head. It's that lump 3 feet above your ass. It really isn't that hard.
It's really not that hard if you stop and think about it a little bit.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Well, did that answer your question?
Yeah, and I thank you for such a fascinating discussion. We could probably sit here and talk the rest of the night about this. I think it's something I've always been curious about, like a lot of people, So it's really super great that you find out all this stuff. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you asking. And I tell you what, we will do a series. You come at me with different questions on a different topic. Don't tell me the questions before the show. Hey, y'all, for anyone listening, I didn't know any of the questions he was going to ask. Didn't know them. And you know what? We'll do a couple, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever shows like that. You come at me with questions, and we'll hash it out.
It sounds like a plan to me, Vanessa.
That sounds like a plan. That sounds like a plan. Well, I hate to tell everybody goodbye, but I have got to go and spend some time with my boy because he starts back to school tomorrow. Woohoo! My senior. He's a senior now. Good gravy. I'm getting old, Mike. But I just wanted to tell you, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for doing this with me. Thank you for letting me get my opinions, because that's what they are, because none of us are experts. None. I don't care how many times they've been on a TV show. When it comes to the paranormal, you're not an expert, self-included. But thank you for allowing me to get my opinions out there and coming at me with some really good questions. I truly do appreciate it, okay?
Well, you're very welcome, and I appreciate you having me on like this. I've greatly enjoyed it, and it's been a fascinating conversation, and I can't wait till next time.
Awesome sauce. All righty. Well, then until next time when Mike puts me on the spot again with who knows what topic, we will just go ahead and say toodles now. So I hope everybody has a great upcoming week, and we'll be talking to y'all soon.